we spoke.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I've just been experimenting with them.
And you are always experimenting, I can tell. And I so enjoy that about you. And that's why it's already and always a pleasure and a privilege to share any space with you, virtual space, certainly these airwaves that are thankfully keeping us connected intimately so. And it was a fateful day several weeks ago now when you and I and my lovely Jordan met over as we browsed the popsicle stand in Bandera, Texas. And anyone listening to this may have likely heard some of my review. I've also circulated the fun conversation we had about that. And every time we've since made our own version of popsicles, it reminds me of you and the sweetness that you already were sprinkling throughout that space. And I would have never known, or I would have never assumed that you were so deep into your heroine's journey, which involved, from what I have gleaned so far, a fair bit of your own visits from the pain teacher and some catharsis that has led you to, I mean, I told you from spending time with you in person and then even just online, you have become one of the most vital people I know with, an energy and a your uniqueness that seems limitless. And I know that you've earned that. And I really don't begin podcasts too much with people sharing their biography, but this is a conversation between two friends. And so I'm keen to know more of what brought you, especially into this world in this field of healthy homes and building biology, because that is now part of your personal lore, your story. And just from reading the introduction, it seems like a fascinating story. So welcome, Lauren Riddei of House Holistics and Planet Earth. And wherever you find it poignant and fascinating to commence the story of you, take it away.
Well, I'm honored to be here, Tom, to share this container with you. Meeting you and Jordan at Confluence was a highlight for sure. And I can't wait for us to confluence again in person. Very excited about that. Well, I would say my story, just like probably every listener of your podcast, it's complicated and it's layered and it's full of dynamic tension. And um, I would have never guessed that I would be in the world of environmental health. Like, I would have never written this playbook ever, that I would be focusing on creating healthy homes. I was a conventional interior designer as a profession. That was my job. That was my business and my company. And we weren't taught about material health. We weren't taught about the manufacturing system. We weren't taught about the health of the trades. We just weren't taught these things in school, in my internship. And so for me to have actually gotten ill from my own designs, my own buildings that I crafted, some might say is ironic, but I would say that that has been part of my destiny, to basically awaken myself to how much our built environments are impacting our emotional health, our physical health, our mental and our spiritual health. And so of course, like, I'm just like so blown away by this experience because it was so painful. The journey that I've had to be on to get here, but I'm grateful because this, when you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, Tom, I know you feel that. Like, I feel that from you. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I feel that as well. And I've always had this sense of, like, what's around the corner? Let's ask questions until we figure it out. I was homeschooled. I was trained quite literally to be a critical thinker and to not just accept the status quo. So I have had no fear in my body about being different, about standing out, about trying new things, pioneering. So it only makes sense that I end up again in a field where we are pioneering what it looks like to live in a healthy home, from air quality to EMF to water quality to the build materials. It is a encompassing product that makes up a healthy home. Um, but it all started in 2017 when my design company was thriving. I had so many fun projects. It was really an awesome time for me. And but I started noticing, Tom, that I would get all of these strange symptoms and sensitivities. I would have chronic fatigue a lot of times. I had brain fog. I was starting to really make mistakes on the job sites. So I started growing my company, and then by 2021 is when a lot of these issues started onsetting. And I would come home from job sites, and I would just have to be bedridden for a couple days to recover from the brain fog and the fatigue and the pain in my physical body. And I was really making a lot of mistakes, and this wasn't good professionally. Well, 6 months earlier, Tom, I had a serious low back and pelvic injury that instantly surged tons of inflammation in my body. And so I think what was happening was that injury basically took my environmental load of 2 decades of trauma, of well, 3 decades at that point. My father passing away, addictions. I was an alcoholic. I had eating disorders for about 10 years. Basically, all this trauma just piled and piled and piled. And I had been working on this stuff. It wasn't that I had not been working on it. I was eating organic food. I was actively seeing therapists. I was actively, pursuing health. But this event of another physical injury, and I've had a lot of physical injuries, broken tibias, broken wrists, surgeries, a lot of physical pain in my body is another key element here. And as an athlete, Tom, you're shaking your head because you know what I'm talking about, how that tension will build up in a person's body. And so this accident basically set me over so that when I would expose myself to job site environments or unhealthy emotional social environments, I basically started reacting, and all of this pain, all of this dysregulation started overflowing. And that put me on a 2.5-year journey where I was in a Western or Eastern office medical professional. I was seeing about two dozen different specialists to figure out, how do we get Lauren out of this pain, first of all, with this low back spinal injury? And then two, what in the world is going on with all of these crazy symptoms and sensitivities? I mean, she's sensitive to light. She can feel her cell phone going up her arm. Like, she can't even go to a store without reacting to chemicals, right? What's going on? So it was a twofold thing going on. And that started my journey of trying to figure out how to get well, how to become whole, how to find my vital life force, probably for the first time in my life.
Thank you for recounting all that. I'm always in awe of people who do have such a good handle for their developing story, and therefore can describe it in what I think is a succinct way, because I know how much of that is rife with complexities and things like that. Uh, One thing that I was certainly drawn to about your version there was early on you saying that at least now you've arrived in a place of gratefulness, being full of greatness, for that sense around your story. And was that a choice you made at the commencement of the journey to heal, or is that the benefit of hindsight? Because I've been there before too. Is it's hard around the emergence of any severe symptom or injury to embrace an openness that includes, there, I am grateful for whatever this is going to reveal to me about me, whatever resilience this is going uh, to really foster within myself. Did you have the input and models out there of people who looked at pain and healing as a journey of gratitude, of an inside job? Because I'm certainly curious about that arc as well. Is how does one end up trusting in the brilliance of the body, re- resuming their responsibility, their ability to respond to anything, because I'm sure you were of the mentality at one point that I've tried everything and I'm seeing everyone and I'm being diagnosed with syndrome, or syndrome, which is just another term
Right.
for unknown. So yeah,
Mystery diagnoses.
that's right, that's right. And I'm always curious just when people really feel like it's because it's not always an epiphany. It's not always one moment all of a sudden that things really shift. You do have to go through the slog sometimes of that journey. And I'm just curious about what a turning point felt like, or even what the rising actions were to that climax in that book one and a half of your story.
Yeah, it's a great question. I resisted it. Absolutely resisted it. And I fought it. And I did not want to feel pain in the physical body, in the emotional body, in the spiritual body. And yet, my highest self and my divine, which I refer to as God, was basically inviting me to feel the pain so that I could come out on the other side of that. And I didn't realize that at the time, which was why I was going to doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist. I mean, it was a full-time job for me. I wasn't working. I was just trying to get well. I was just seeing doctors. That was my job. And I would just was so did not want to feel that pain because I had felt so much pain in my life up to that point that I had topped out my pain tolerance. And I remember seeing this one intuitive woman on my journey, and she said, Lauren, you have reached your max capacity for pain in this lifetime. And I said, hell yeah, I have. Like,
Mm.
I can't experience more pain. Like, I need relief, right? However, it wasn't until I started getting involved with this program called Primal Trust. And I don't know if you've heard of Primal Trust or not. It's a
I've not.
brain retraining program and a limbic system retraining program. So, looking back, what I realized is I had a limbic system injury where my brain was so fixated and focused on trying to get out of the pain or to find relief that there was an actual injury to my neural circuitry. And so I had to start retraining the neurons. I had to have them fire in different paths, basically. And so this program, I started it, and it's a lot. It was a lot of work. I still spend about an hour and a half every single day training my brain and rerouting my limbic system to find safety and to find okayness in my live, work, play environments, but also my emotional environments as well, which is why I am all about nervous system regulation no matter what work anyone is doing. Because, for example, I could design and build you the healthiest home on the planet that's free of toxins, free of mold, not even close to a cell phone tower. But if that person does not feel safe within their interior environment, they're never going to feel safe. So for me, I think the turning point was getting myself in this program called Primal Trust and being in a community of other people who have had chronic disease or environmental issues or autoimmune. Really what's happening is it's our body kind of attacking itself because we don't feel safe. We don't feel okay. Thought already.
No, the train can leave the station, it can go off the tracks, it can always come back. And no, I mean, I still think that I was actually trying to look up Primal Trust as well, because I am curious. It is ringing a bell. How did you find out about Primal Trust? And
Yeah.
is it something you recommend? Did you feel that you were uniquely primed to lean into that? I mean, I know there's a lot of serendipity that goes into. I think it was pure serendipity that led me through the
Mhm.
sequence to the
Yeah.
way forward, Alex work, terrain theory, Alpha Vedic, anything like that, which are all portals. And when something works, I mean, it's funny, Lauren, as I am sure you've seen, the trendiness around in the the capital H health community and all the different sects of that religion, the obsession with brain training. And so much of it is to combat Alzheimer's or, to optimize or things like that. I mean, you had a necessity from it, it sounds like, and thankfully you were tuned into that focused path. And it is very trendy. And what I find the reason why it's not that I'm resistant to it, it's just something I'm wary of when I see how obsessed people get about the brain. I remember walking on the street with a very intelligent and thoughtful friend of mine who's in an adjacent part of the health world via surgical sales in Greater Boston, and I was daring and audacious enough to offer the potential that the heart is a more likely a more likely center of consciousness. And he, the guffaw almost choked him as he said, "What are you talking about? It's obviously the brain." And so this is part of, I know there's so much more to brain training, nervous system regulation than just that. And given your experience, I'd love to hear where you've landed via primal trust and beyond, of how you, because I don't talk about the mind body anymore. I mean, because people think brain body, or they just think, they still think of it as a division between what's above the shoulders and everything that's below. And so I would love to invite your own assessment, personal assessment, worldview of brain heart coherence. I know you have experience with the Heart Math Institute as well. And yeah, I mean, how did Primal Trust kickstart that new launch for you?
I learned about the heart math through Primal
Oh,
Trust.
brilliant. Okay.
So Dr. Cat, fascinating, brilliant individual. She has a very similar story to mine, who experienced a lot of pain, tried everything, couldn't figure it out how to find wellness. And she started off with DNRS. So DNRS and the Gupta program is another brain retraining or limbic system program. Primal Trust is another version of it. And so I say brain retraining because that's like the first thing that you kind of become aware, but it's so much more than that. And so
Hmm.
I can just give you a little snippet into my day and how I use it. How about that?
Please, that'd be brilliant. And
Yeah.
for listeners as well as viewers, we're just looking at their site right now, seeing how, I mean, it certainly seems intensive in what they have.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'd much rather hear from you, of course, about how that has woven itself into the fabric of your day.
Yeah. So we talked about doing eye yoga in the morning,
Hmm.
because that very much helps with the vagus nerve. And so I'll do eye yoga after I wake up, but even before I get up, I'm putting my hand on my heart and I'm creating heart coherence. So I do 5 to 10 minutes right when I wake up of heart math, opening my heart, signaling to my body that I'm safe, and then also starting some of the visualization work of how I foresee my day going about. So then I will do some eye yoga in the morning. I do 2 meditations or
Why,
visualizations or
why,
brain
why,
retraining.
why the eye yoga? I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I have my best guess as to why.
Mhm.
What's your understanding for the boon of doing eye yoga, especially on the
Yeah.
rise?
Yeah, so proprioception and interoception
Mm.
is signaling to us, or when we're looking around, how close is something, how far away is something. We are constantly looking for threats in our environment. And then that's how we are signaling to us safety. So when we're doing eye yoga, not only are we triggering the vagus nerve to calm down, but we're also assessing our environment when we do certain eye yoga exercises.
Terrific.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that I implement into my day are the two ABC practices. So it's awareness, it's breath, and then it's creation. And so I'm doing these twice a day where I'm becoming aware of my current state of being. How am I feeling? What emotions have I suppressed? What emotions are there? Am I feeling fight or flight? Am I feeling an activation of my nervous system? Or am I feeling calm? So I'm just becoming aware of my internal environment. And that's very helpful, especially if I come home from a stressful meeting or I'm exposed to something, I immediately can go into an internal awareness and check in with myself. And then I move to breath. So Dr. Kat is huge on breath, as we all are in the little H health community. And the simple breath community, or the simple breath practice that I prefer, is breathing in. I am here now in this. I am here now in this. And for a mind like myself, and Tom, maybe a mind like yours, we're always going. We're always filtering. We're always thinking. And so we have to remember to come back and say, I'm here now in this podcast with Tom. I'm here. I'm not out there. I'm right here with Tom, sharing this container, sharing this conversation. And so in that ABC, I'm doing that. I'm here and I'm breathing and I'm safe and I'm okay. And then that's when you go into the creation. And so what has been most helpful for people with a lot of complicated backgrounds is going to their past and remembering moments that were joyful or happy or safe, so that you can remind your current reality that those things are also true and they also exist in the future. So for me, for a long time, I couldn't recall past memories. It was like someone had just erased all my past memories and I just blacked out to it. And that's often just a trauma response of not wanting to remember those, because that's not important right now. We need to survive in this moment. And so I, would come up with little memories. Like I remember, sharing that Christmas with my family and the moment that I felt X, Y, or Z with my siblings, to recall the memories of joy and peace, and that I have something to look forward to. So then you can also, in the same creation place, I'm thinking about a time in my future when I'm on a podcast with Tom and we are just having such a brilliant heart-to-heart conversation. And Tom is filled up and Lauren is filled up, and we're going to take this filling and go to our communities with it, right? I did that yesterday, thinking about our time together, creating the future I want. I can do that every day. So the ABC has been huge to basically fire new neurons that haven't been there or maybe never existed or are a little rusty. Does that make sense?
Certainly, and I'm grateful for the peek behind the curtain there, because I think this is where I'm certainly appreciative of anyone who has the desire to create their own toolkit to go out in the world. Because I know people have these struggles, and even if they can recognize through any semblance of an awareness practice, to recognize an elevated heart rate, a mitigated breath rate, anything that really brings them tension or confusion. I've certainly been there lately, just with different bouts and trials in my own life, where uh, it's just helpful when I can take the space to, at any point in the day, and people call it somatic review. I mean, truly, if you can feel anything in your body, that's a great place to begin. I feel for the people. I'm more careful than ever about distinguishing between sympathy and empathy, because I do have some empathic tendencies. Generally, what I feel though is sympathy. Is I do have without taking it for people. I hope this is helpful to distinguish. Empath is you really do take on the experience, as I understand it, of other people. If you can recognize their grief, then you assume some level of their grief, and that is a burden that I wouldn't wish on anyone anyway. Thank God there are people like that who then can become healers. But my sympathy for people who have even remotely comparable experiences to yours, Lauren, and are one thing that came up when you were sharing was the numbness, possibly, or like you said, maybe neurons that weren't even there. Uh, that can be a frightening darkness for people to truly avoid, that people may just see as a void. Is if I cannot access a time of even the memory of joy, let alone experiencing moments of joy throughout my day, if I cannot conjure that magic back up within myself to, have a past that is not totally full of whatever I'm experiencing now, like, was it always like this? Is it always going to be like this? I think is where people can get into those states of despair. Uh, and then for people, I'm sympathetic for people who are numbed by that, who are disempowered by that, and that is likely to lead to uh, certainly some sort of search for authority and someone to be authoritative and bold enough to take control of my life for me. And it is a slippery slope, and there are so many skids that are greased in that direction for people uh, to shift this conversation into certainly where you find yourself in the present and beyond, because you inspire me to inhabit that space of future creation. That's the magic of the third dimension, is that we are able to access the past and the future in our present and have that be co-creative. And to me, I mean, I think that's inspiring. I don't feel too stymied by my past, and I don't feel like I used to, which was daunted by my future. That said, how have you cultivated a relationship with yourself, and especially with your health journey, that is rooted in love and not obligation? And you may have some sense of where I'm coming from, especially being back in the gym culture world, where it's the I have to work out, I have to go to the gym, I couldn't possibly, when I meet people where they're at in terms of injuries. I just had this thought today about people playing tennis year round. There's one class of people on the planet who should be playing tennis year round, and those are professionals, and they go to great lengths to maintain their body. People do not. But part of it is they get into this obligatory cycle of I have to keep doing these things. If it's stretching, if it's working out intensely, if it's eating a certain way, certain type of food, that they are convinced. But it is, they've, the convincing there, the self-convincing, is that it's obligatory. And we know some of the perils of that sort of language. I'm certainly curious how you shifted that again from a place of love, because then we're going to get into the discussion around one of my least favorite phrases, which is earning a living instead of living, instead of labors of love. I tell people, especially when it comes to tennis lately, I don't say I'm going to work, I'm going to play. I mean, it's tennis, and that's
I
very
love
much what it
that.
feels like. And I know you're enjoying a good deal of play. So, in your own words, I mean, yeah, how has that uh, just that game plan been shaped around love, love for service, love for you to build your battery up so then you can go spend it in service of beautiful creation versus, oh, I have to do this from the place of scarcity and obligation that maybe you feel like you didn't choose. I know you're a chooser, so if that makes sense, you can follow that.
I entered this world a sensitive soul, but I didn't
thank
know that.
thank God for that.
And I believe the physical injuries are one of the fastest routes to enlightenment. Physical pain, trauma, and physical injuries, they don't get enough clout because of how quick to reality you either are accepting or resisting this confines that has been placed over you of restriction. And so I believe that I experienced injury after injury or pain after pain or rejection after rejection so that I would wake up to my sensitive nature that I was trying to suppress for a long time. I didn't want to feel that much. I am an empath. It's a lot. It's too much noise. It's too much chaos. So let's numb it down. Let's make it not available to my system. I mean, by age 19, I was an alcoholic because I was numbing myself at 16, 17, 18, 19 with a substance so that I couldn't feel. And so I just if you are an empath out there, Tom's audience, I mean, what a superpower, but we aren't really given the tools at an early age to harness it because it can be quite overwhelming. I don't know what your question was, but that came to me when you were when you were mentioning, uh, yeah, being empathetic. And I believe the strongest people are also the most sensitive, which is kind of counterintuitive sometimes because we
Mhm.
think, and I certainly thought I needed to be hard, I needed to be tough, I needed to be all of these external um, facets when really I needed to come back home to myself. I needed to remember who I was. Oh, that was your question about love. Uh, I had to learn to love myself because I didn't love myself. In fact, this may sound harsh, but I really despised myself. I did not like myself. I did not like the way that I looked or the way I sounded or whatever these things may be, right? And so I was constantly trying to reshape my present reality. The image of the ghost of Christmas present comes to my mind in the Christmas carols.
Mhm.
He's like, specifically the Muppet Christmas carols. That's my family's personal
Yeah.
favorite. We go to the Muppet one every time because it's so goofy. But
Yeah.
the ghost of Christmas present is like this big, fat, jolly guy with presents everywhere, with food just plentiful. And his hair is out here, but his joy is just radical. And there's nothing else that matters to him in that moment but the present. And I was never fully able to comprehend the present of who Lauren is in the present. Who am I in the present? Am I safe? Am I loved? Unless I'm achieving something, unless I'm going after something, unless I'm winning something. Oh, what a tiring reality.
Yeah. I can imagine it was, and still to emerge from that willing and able to accept your sensitive nature, because yeah, a lifetime of exhaustion because via the numbing and the avoidance, the dance that takes you away from the void, which is avoidance, being able to look into yeah, and it doesn't really sound like shadow, it's just I mean, I know there's some aspect of that, but again, thank God that you came into this world as a sensitive soul because we do need people like that, and they are more liable to suffer for a time. I really can't think of,
Yeah.
at least at the present moment, I can't think of a lot of programs, systems, habits we have that nurture sensitivity,
Mhm.
um, as you know, being in a loving relationship, at least one, but especially in the sanctity of marriage and being in that, we are invited to an almost unfathomable level of sensitivity over time to, and I think, I mean, I get to witness this with women. We know it as intuition, but just the ability to read one another and be sensitive to the fact that in our in our most taxing moments, this is someone who I am called to treat with love first. And it's so true what you say that, and as cliches are cliches for a reason, the the self-education around learning to love oneself, it should be somewhat self-evident then that you cannot give what you do not have. And we really do not have great models around sensitive love, around love that is really fruitful. And it's hard to say. I mean, I was going to say unconditional love. I think that's a magnificent aspiration. There are conditions that we have for one another, more in terms of commitment, as I'm talking this aloud. Uh, but as I think we said on our original conversation, the fact that word can be so, it, I mean, it is multidimensional, but people may not understand the depth of it. And I am very sensitive to the conversation around self love because it's been part of my healing journey and my vitality journey that this is me investing in the love I have for myself. It makes me more uh, vigilant and attentive to any shame, guilt, unforgiving nature that I might have toward myself, because fully intend to be able to express that to others as they deserve, as men and women out in the world, and service to others. We certainly have models of people who are sainted for their ability to serve, and sacrifice themselves in the process. I am inspired by different role models for that these days, of people who prize and cherish their own vitality because they know it doesn't benefit the world if I'm plugging in with a 65% battery every day at
Yeah.
my best. And I can imagine that you've seen just the massive upside to taking the time, creating the time to invest in your own battery in service of others. And with that in mind, I'd love to start to build the bridge toward your epiphany that I mean, pain to purpose is another great cliche, that out of the resistance you felt, out of the challenges that you were tasked with enduring and completing, because, I mean, as hokey as it can sound, there is nothing we cannot handle. We are empowered, uh,
Mhm.
deeply with the resources and the divine guidance to navigate that. And I say that for your benefit as well as my own and as anyone listening, because that is a reminder that I coach myself up with. You know, good coaches are here to remind, not always to teach. And
Yeah.
so what enlightenment did you experience that led to, I'm going to give the gift of myself and my life force now that you can, you know, have a pulse on it, and do that to create the most healing, nourishing environment for myself and others. And yeah, I think if there's a prequel to that question, did you start with yourself? Did you start with, let me get my home base right, and then take it out into the world?
Yeah. I was forced to start with myself. I think a launching point for me, Tom, was waking up to my own religious programming, because the freedom that I'm encountering today, I had to set many boundaries about what I was willing to intake or not.
It's the great paradox of freedom is boundaries first.
Yeah, but when you've been heavily brought up in a religious paradigm, that was probably one of the most challenging aspects to find freedom, was because I had been trained that loving yourself was selfish. And so I had to actually come up and out of a lot of that resistance in general. And so to be able to open my heart to the love that I have for myself to be able to give away is so obvious, right? Like the only training we have on that is when we fly on an airplane and we're told to put on the mask for ourselves. That's the only training we really
Mhm.
get, which is so ironic because
Yep.
everyone's like, duh, you put on the mask and then we can help our neighbor. But when push comes to shove, and you may lose community over it, you may lose friendships over it, you may lose aspects of safety over it, so that you can put on that mask so that you can eventually help other people. I think that it becomes a little bit more challenging, especially when you are going to lose things. So I had to lose everything to find home base, to find myself. And it was painful, and yet I wouldn't have it any other way, because I came into this world to keep learning lessons over and over and over again until I get it. I think like all of us.
It's the until I get it part that has been a struggle for me. It's like, when will I just fucking get it, you know?
I mean, what's the number? What's the number for you, Tom? Is it like 3 times until you get it? Is it 10 times? Have you figured out a pattern yet?
Yeah, I feel half a dozen comes to mind, unfortunately, which is, yeah, like, I'm thinking of spinal stuff, you know, not and no traumatic spine stuff for me, but the
Mhm.
things that have continually cropped up around. And the more I get into psychic roots of disease and, uh, you know, certainly somatic storage or German new medicine or anything like that, it's been a remarkable roadmap to at least point me back toward myself of, you know, what ignorance am I encouraging? What avoidance am I engaging in that keeps me from making progress in this cycle? And then, yeah, certainly with the emotional and interpersonal boundaries, that stuff's been, I've, I'm hurdling it several times before any sort of major, conscious leap, because the subconscious awareness comes through symptom, injury,
Mhm.
emotion, etc. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm still a little schoolboy sometimes.
Aren't we all though,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I think my number is I'm getting a solid 3,
yeah,
right? By
word.
the 3rd time. If I didn't pick up on the hint, girlfriend, come on, like you should know this by now.
Yeah.
Um,
This is why I am the fool, because it is like, fool me once, shame on you, and then every other time I am playing the fool willingly. I've signed up to audition. No one else auditioned. Tom, you get the part. Take it away.
yep, yep. And
Yeah.
our body of course keeps a score. And so it's always watching out for us in a way.
Mhm.
So if we're getting some sort of onset of insert whatever it may be, it's signaling to us something to drop in somatically and pay attention to it. However, this is something that I learned in Primal Trust, and I went down, the G new medicine route, the Louise Hayes route, the like, let me figure out the body part that is signaling the thing, right? I
Mhm.
spent several years trying to chase my tail essentially. Like, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it
Mhm.
the chicken or the egg? Doctor, is it the chicken or the egg? This person, right? And it was frustrating, actually, at the end of the day. And
And
Primal Trust,
are you
go ahead.
saying, Lauren, just quickly, are you saying more like, is it the emotional creating the physical creating the emotional? Is that the loop you were stuck in? Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
thank you for that clarification.
absolutely, I mean, because I've been there, especially when people approach me with, "This is what I have going on," and, I'm thinking, do I jump right to the barn burning questions of, "Well, how's your relationship with your mom?" Or, did you actually, like, bend over backwards to catch a rebound and, pop
Right.
something out of place? It's like,
Where
so
do
so
you
you
start?
that's
Yeah.
right.
And it's quite layered and dynamic. And if someone is already in a dysregulated state,
Mhm.
it's actually humanly impossible to figure out the cause or the effect.
Say
And
s say more on that, because I'm remembering now when you brought that up earlier, uh the pull you felt to really lean into better practices around, nervous system regulation, that certainly makes sense to me on every level.
Mhm,
Like, I just feel a calmness, a stillness right now hearing you say that, uh, some level of regulation that I
mhm,
sport for
that's
sure. To again,
amazing.
to be able to receive, just one additional question with that is, I'm realizing we talked about signals, and this is going to kickstart a series of questions I have as well around sensitivity, because, yeah, if you're not regulated or you don't have the tools to bring you back to that space, I have experience, and I would guess for a lot of people, it does become seemingly impossible to really get that read on oneself. And because, I don't know what homeostasis, I don't know what peace, comfort, feeling loved feels like. And so I don't necessarily have the fluency to read whatever these signals are, and then go from there, and still stay within,
Mhm.
for that inward spiral.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Kat shared this image, and I'm gonna find it and send it to you because as well as you, almost had this sense of regulation when she showed this image to me. It was this, and I forget if it was a computer program that ran it, that it was trying to figure out what is the cause of this injury or this symptom or this illness. It was actually humanly impossible in like 10 lifetimes to figure it out because of all of the moving parts that are constantly happening in our fields, in our histories, with our experiences. And so we could spend the rest of our lives trying to figure out, well, okay, is it like because, I was rejected at this point in my life that my left foot hurts and I'm afraid to take steps forward, right? Is it that? Like, that will wear you down to
Yeah.
bits. And you've experienced that. I've experienced that. And as soon as Dr. Cat painted this picture, that when you drop the resistance to try to figure it out, the pain will start to organize itself into harmony and balance, my friend, because you are no longer putting all of this energy into what is wrong with me. Because what is wrong with me is actually signaling a lack of safety within.
Mhm.
And if
Yeah.
you can let that rest and just say, you know what, I'm never going to figure out, is it this disorder or that? Do I need this medicine or that because of this diagnosis or not? We might never ever figure it out. And in my case, I still don't even know fully what happened to me and
Yeah.
what I came up and out of because I had to drop it. Because chasing the healer and even the healing wasn't working because I couldn't put a pin on it. And that actually was not the resolution for my healing journey. And so as soon as I dropped it, Tom, I started signaling parasympathetic in my body and I started yawning more, right? And
Mhm.
like even all the little things that show when you're in a place of okayness. Um, and yes, like what we all survive really matters. And they holds the keys to how we move through it. And also there is a mystery that we may never know fully. Just like the universe, we're not going to know all the things. And I wonder if that's on purpose.
I am, certainly more open to the mystery because, yeah, that does seem like an exhausting, very, very just purely mental approach. It is that ego of brain consciousness, which certainly plays its part in the fight or flight responses, in protecting us, in helping us
Mhm.
problem solve on the fly. Certainly with the relationship in the eyes and the brain, we're grateful for our brains. We do everything in our power to keep them healthy,
Yeah.
and also, uh, I don't think the question what is wrong with me can be emitted from the heart with a smile. In the same way that you would look at someone and say, someone you think is an imbecile about that, you say, "What is wrong with you?" Or if you're really wondering, like, "What the heck is wrong with you?" To then turn that in, I can feel just the ooze of despair at the times, and it's happened to me, absolutely, in a not too distant memory, to say, "What is wrong with me?"
Yeah.
And there's no way to say that really then produces a shift, which is what we're looking for, which is what is the difference maker. There is just so much language and so much invisible structure. I mean, it really is just the miasm of how we've come to deceive ourselves around healing. That numbness or even lack of pain, reduction of symptoms is real healing. And I appreciate that you described some of the maybe not fear, but just the resistance around loss. When you ask yourself, what am I willing to give up, to let go of? Is an identity around my pain? Is it the opportunities and relationships I might lose from just walking a different path? Those can be the heaviest questions to pick up for people. And especially when it comes to, because now as we shift into the pragmatism around investing in what I think are the most worthwhile investments around our second skin, in the way that our body is the house to our soul, then our home is therefore, of course, the house to our body. It is where we come ideally to replenish, to reconnect. And I don't know, I'm talking to you, Lauren, because I am it just delighted with the opportunity to speak this language with someone. You're more fluent in it than I am. Of how do we start to introduce this lexicon you and I share about talking about the home in this way, helping people realize that it's more than this place that you pay a mortgage for just so you can have, the more I've learned about Maslow and where he came from and the quote unquote hierarchy of needs, uh, you know, really just demoting people to all that language around you're an ape, you're a reptile, like again, earning a living, like what do you have to sacrifice just to be alive, all based around shelter. And we're absolutely grateful for shelter. It's 95 degrees outside. I'm grateful that I'm in my cool, I should say, unaired basement, like, whatever the temperature is for the rest of the summer. Like, I have really not that much temperature control here, and I got to ride with that. It's good for my system anyway to be that level of resilient. Uh, the what were your first chapters being written around? What can I mean, I certainly had a cornerstone question for you around addition versus subtraction to enrich the healing abilities of your home. Did you start with what can I add, or did you begin with what can I subtract to enhance my chances of feeling good at home? Which, if it's your home, I feel like you're at least entitled to feel good there.
We're in North America. What do you think I did? Added or subtracted?
Couple pluses?
Definitely subtracted.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, well, I mean, I should have given you more credit. You were on a journey. The average person, I would say, add. It's because it's similar with health. It's like what more exercises can I be doing? What more
Ah,
foods? What more supplements? More is when you say North America. That's what I think of.
well, I was thinking when people ask me this question of like, what did you do physically to your home environment? There was subtraction there. It was
Yeah.
the immediate reduction of as much chemicals as possible.
So, such as, I mean, I'd like to make this
Yeah.
as this is my new venture into interview style, is to say
Cool.
not like what are the three no, I mean, but first things that came to mind that you were educated about that
Yeah.
I mean, I'm it's a big bang for buck in terms of
Yeah.
my, if I can just get this the fuck out of my space,
Yeah.
the energetic return is
Yeah.
there. So what was, I mean, yeah, what was your first
Okay,
mm,
well,
project?
let me just say before the environment, and I'm speaking of the physical environment
Mhm.
that the EPA says that we spend 90% of our time in. And they did a study in 2001, and 50% of those homes that we spend 90% of our time in are affecting our health negatively. All right, we're 2025, so you can imagine post COVID,
Mhm.
where we are now with that. So, along my journey of finding the healing path, I had a Chinese medicine doctor of mine who's also my naturopath. She reviewed my blood work and noticed alarmingly high levels of lead in my blood work. And she asked me, "Where are you living? Where are you working?" And I said, "Oh, I'm an interior designer. Like, I'm on job sites, I'm in antique stores." Like, "What do you mean? Why does that even matter to this appointment? Tell me
Yeah.
what's wrong with me, you know?" And she was like, "Well, that's probably something that you need to seriously consider removing yourself from those environments." Then I was like, "That's my career. What do you mean? I can't just stop working. Like, that's how I make money." And that was the first time that I had a thought, Tom, that goes, "Oh my gosh, like, is my live, work, and play environment impacting my health negatively? Oh my gosh."
But the first words that came out of your mouth were, "No, like,
No.
I'm not really gonna look at it." That's, yeah, I mean, I that
I didn't believe her.
right, and that's where I encourage people to really lean into a moment of pause there, is if it's so immediate and visceral, "No, it couldn't possibly be that," or I would not, I'm not even going to entertain that, I'm not even gonna think about it. There's the door that you
Well,
are.
I wished you were in that appointment with me, Tom.
But it doesn't sound like because I think about the concept of the catch. How far can I fall before I catch myself and say, let me at least put my hands out before I fall flat on my face again because I refuse to look where I'm walking. And if I'm going to keep walking this path and there are things that I'm not going to look at on my path, how long? And it sounds like you had a pretty short distance between that catch of, well, could it be? Is that true? One of the best questions, instead of saying that's not true, saying, could that be true?
Oh, Byron Katie. Yes, the
Yeah,
work. Is it true?
yeah,
Yeah, well, I definitely denied her suggestion at first because at that time, Tom, I was doing all the things. I was
yeah, right.
eating organic foods. I was taking expensive supplements. I was doing all the latest biohacks and cutting edge therapies. I had all the additions in my home, right? Like all the things that people do to heal themselves. And so there was no way that it was environmental. Like when I hear environmental, I've always just thought like that's a weird word. First of all, like I'm not going to
Yeah.
buy that agenda because there's so much story with the word environmental. And
Mhm.
I never actually considered it though from a human health perspective, from my actual home or my workplace. So I immediately then slept on it, and overnight I decided I have to stop. I have to stop going to the job site. So I did all that. I removed myself from the exposures of the chemicals, of the adhesives, of the drywall dust, the construction dust, the cutting of quartz. I mean, it's an incredibly dangerous and toxic environment. The construction world is. But in my home environment, and this is where I'm going to get into some practical things so that people can do these things immediately. I tried to reduce my chemical load as much as possible. So I just savagely like got rid of all perfumes, any chemicals in soaps, cleaning products. I mean, I went through everything and just took my chemical load down to like 10% in my home.
Yeah.
And, my husband came home and was like, where is this thing and this thing? I'm like, it's gone. Like, we're starting afresh. We're starting anew. Um, I had already been turning off my Wi-Fi for a number of years up until that point, but I decided to get rid of my Wi-Fi entirely because I was so sensitive electronically and to electromagnetic fields. So I got rid of my Wi-Fi, still coming in with you live via Ethernet connection, and that was significantly helpful.
Hmm.
We started turning off our circuit breakers at night in our bedrooms because it produces an electric field and a magnetic field coming from your wall wiring. And
Yeah.
so you just want to like turn those off and shut those off in your sleeping areas. We got rid of synthetic fabrics, clothing, bedding, linens, and went all natural, organic cottons and wools and linens. Um, let's see here. We did a couple different things where like our butcher block was covered with a sealant on it. So
Yeah.
like butcher block is a beautiful natural material that has this hygroscopic ability to absorb and release moisture as the environment deems necessary. But when we take this natural material like a wood countertop and we seal it with a plastic coating, it can no longer do its brilliant nature job. And so we took off that sealant on the butcher block and then just used linseed oil instead. So there were different like renovation construction things that we did. Some mineral paint instead of using acrylic based plastic paints in a bedroom renovation, we used all mineral paints. Let's see here. Air quality, we got a HEPA air filter. That's really easy.
Mhm.
But also we didn't discount the negative ions and the air filtration coming from opening windows every day.
Yeah.
It's actually amazing how we have phased out operable windows in our society.
Yep.
That once prized job of opening windows in the morning and opening windows at night is just not part of our rhythm because we rely on ERVs and mechanical ventilation systems to do a job for us that actually, when we do it ourselves, we're reminded that our home is not a machine for living in, but it's a living, breathing organism that we get to interface with.
And one of the operative words that you said there was breathing. And how have you come to educate yourself and others around a home that needs to breathe? I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm certainly curious because one of the things that is genuinely out of my control is how this home was built, and the materials that went into that. And so
Right.
still I find myself in that situation where I do want to, or I do fully intend to edify people around. I mean, I think the subtractions are low hanging fruit. I really do, because under that umbrella of environmental, uh, you can say hazards or just detriments to your health. The bulk of that arguably is in the personal care category, because to lather yourself, we were joking beforehand about the ways in which people do stifle their natural
Yeah.
smells or symptoms or whatever. I mean, it should all be somewhat signaling. I mean, I'll say a word for body odor if it's intensely bad. I mean, first of all, if you're someone who has onions and garlic and things like that as part of your day-to-day diet. I mean, so it goes. There might be a little bit of that going on, but to then stifle one of the ways in which your body breathes, lathering things on your skin, on your armpits, anything like that, uh, then you are certainly hindering your body's ability to have a full inhale and exhale. It's not just done through the nose or through the mouth. As in, it's no surprise that once you get clogged up in general, you end up breathing through your mouth because your nose filtration system isn't as readily available to you. So there is this is why it's said in the holistic world that there really is nothing outside of us, because the thing that can be so daunting in a way about the environment is that it does entail everything that we interact with. And since we have the choice over what do I reach for and apply to my ostensibly perfect body and being, I certainly believe that to be low hanging fruit for sure. But yeah, if you would please share some of your experience about how you've come to understand what supports or blocks a home from being more breathable. And I certainly agree that opening windows and doors, even on a hot day, even on a really cold day, that's really such easily accessible free energy, quick recharge of a quick recycle of the electric current in your home through air, through ions, through light. So yeah, what else goes into keeping a home fairly breathable?
Okay. I think it would be worth me giving a little bit of history though around sick building syndrome, because I think
Please.
it'll paint a picture for what makes a home breathable. So I went back to school to study environmental health through the Building Biology Institute of North America. So, for those that have never heard of building biology, it is a holistic study of how we humans interact with the built environment. It is a 25 principled discipline and philosophy. So, we look at all the principles that may go into making up a healthy home. So that runs the gamut of clean water, clean air, circadian friendly lighting, natural materials. Building biology has a preference for mass wall construction, and I'll get there, but it runs the gamut of these 25 encompassing principles with a focus on a lot of these areas that people ignore about healthy homes. So that would be the acoustics, that would be geopathic stress, that would be the electromagnetic radiation that it's coming from your wall wiring or proximity to cell towers or your own cell phone use. And it also gets into more of the sustainability and the community location of your home, as well as landscaping and more of the permaculture side as well. So
Mhm. Wow, that's
uh,
that's full on. I mean, that
it's
is
full on.
is it is
Yes.
it is there anything they don't touch into like, my mind goes to septic or
We
managing.
touch it all.
Okay, cool.
We
Amazing.
touch it all because it all
Amazing.
matters.
That's right. That is so I'll put you on the spot. Uh, you say I'm Lauren Riddei with House Holistics, uh, educating people around creating a holistic environment. If anyone ever pressed you and said, "Lauren, what does holistic mean?"
Hmm.
How do you define it for people?
Great question. Holistic. I would actually say, how long do you have? Because
Yeah, right.
I'm happy to paint a picture of every area that we put our light and attention to. Because there's nothing like it, Tom, on the planet. I mean, we have, which you might be familiar with, LEED or green building
Mhm.
or building science. We
Yeah.
overlap a little bit,
Okay.
but green building in particular is focusing primarily on planetary health, which
Yeah,
we
right.
cover that in building biology, but oftentimes the occupant gets left out in green building because there are points. Uh, it's a systematic approach, whereas building biology is a design philosophy, it's a design mindset. There's no way you could ever put building biology on a point system because we're not after getting points for our trades to be eating organic snacks in the break room. That's
Yeah,
not impacting the end user.
no, and I anticipate that part of the issue there is that green or lead, just from my peripheral awareness of them, is that they're playing a game that is beholden to a different agenda, which is not my agenda or yours, like you said, especially leaving the occupant out, having standards that are more aligned with the narrative around what is really going to quote unquote save the planet, which inherently denies the regenerative nature of this planet when it's given space to breathe and to truly live and not do things that are anti-life. So
Right.
I mean, it's a great answer from you because
How
you
much
would
time
have
do
to
you have?
say, yeah, I mean, yeah, how much time do you have to talk about everything? Everything.
I
Yeah.
mean, literally, and so I would say though, there is it's a science, but it's also overlapping into the esoteric principles with the geopathic stress zones, like making sure that our house, we are placing it upon the land, the proper section of land, and we're not interfering with Hartman or Curry grids or any sort of under current that we can't see of water. I mean, all of those things impact us, whether we know it or not. Um, and so building biology came about post World War II because
Mm.
post World War II, they decided to start putting up industrialized housing that was made with all these new fancy building materials. They're like, ooh, we're so excited to try out this plastic synthetic
Oh,
option.
okay. Yeah, I was going to
To-
ask if that followed, like, the petrol boom and,
Mhm.
not okay. That I mean, the it behooves people to understand just how much momentum was started after, probably, maybe not the apex, but I think probably the launch pad for military industrial complex, which pervades. I mean, yeah, I mean that because that has turned into mass production and an
Yeah,
economy of which prioritizes that lack of sustainability and all of that, which is so much driven by just the resources that people like. There's no boogeyman. I'm just saying Rockefellers, and because of their relationship to oil and therefore having you know their own family crest commitment of selling that to people. So that makes sense in terms of history, just like
yeah.
how that commenced. So, but building biology stepped up to potentially
Well, it didn't
reverse the
exist
fortunes.
until then
Yeah.
because people started to get sick. You had these people going into these post-industrialized housing and they were getting ill and people couldn't figure it out. So there's a group of doctors that got together with the group of architects and builders and holistic minded people and they formed a coalition. And they said, "Hey, I think it's the housing. I think it's this plastic synthetic derived environment that people are now in that were not sick before. What's going on?" And so that is the beautiful origination of building biology in Europe. So there is several different institutes that exist across the globe. Thankfully, we have one here in North America. So I am learning from the best in the world when it comes to environmental health, especially the areas that people maybe don't want to tango with, like the EMF side or the acoustics or the social responsibility side as well. So, with that being said, there's a couple different worlds, even within the building biology world. So, you have the more building science homes that are high performance, airtight. They've got their ERVs, they've got their MRVs, and they're very
Would
aware.
ERVs, MRVs, what do those stand for?
Mechanical ventilation
Oh,
system. So
okay.
they are exchanging air, stale air from inside and bringing in fresh air. So they are their windows. They are operating the windows for you, which is really beautiful and is a healthy home. And I enjoy working on high performance homes. However, I'm a bit of a purist and I like to stay within the roots of building biology. And the roots of building biology, it is and has a preference for mass wall construction. These are homes made with natural materials, that are alternative, whether they are hempcrete, or I just went to a cob workshop,
Yeah,
rammed
that
earth.
looks phenomenal. That looks so
It's
cool.
so cool. And so you don't need basically any sort of water resistant barrier. You don't need a vapor barrier, because nature is doing its job of being vapor permeable, being hygroscopic, and they're releasing vapor as needed. So in conventional high performance homes, you need all these different plastic layers so that it can do what nature was already doing back in the day when we used to build homes like this. So it's all a wall system. So you kind of
Mm.
have to look at your wall system and go, okay, what is this made up with? Is it light frame stick construction? And is there plaster? Is there what's the exterior sheathing? It's all a system, and so that becomes a filter. And so, kind of what moves in and what moves out, and you want to make it less you want to choose nature as much as possible, and you want to mimic nature as much as possible. There are some amazing high performance building materials that are made with synthetics. Like I said, I'm more of a purist. I'm gonna choose simple as much as possible.
Well, there's tremendous utility in that, for various reasons, and I won't jump the gun too much in terms of what those investments look like. As you can imagine, though, the reason I brought up the breathability is because as I continue my work in the field of real estate, and I mean, it's certainly not my position anyway to advise people yet. I mean, because I don't want to get into the whole game of licensure, and the whole point of having a license is asking for permission and having people tell you things you can and cannot do. However, my services beyond just the transaction and the relationship of pointing people in the direction of things to consider with their home. Usually, people defer to home inspectors for that. I know that they don't necessarily have the most up to date insight onto some of the things that we're discussing. Uh, but I would say one of the most fear inducing and misunderstood aspects of people's homes, especially here in the Northeast or North America, being coastal, is the good old M word of mold. And because of I feel like I hear it more frequently now than ever, but people say, mold sickness, mold induced sickness. And I have what I consider to be certainly a perspective that is a departure from what people think of mold doing, because I am a student of the terrain and the Bibleson Academy and Alex Zach, Jacob Diaz, Don Lester, people like this who recognize, and I hope you can shed some light on this, that mold it's just sort of an outcropping of a failed detox system that has to blend with lack of breathability, toxic breathing materials, change in season. Of course, if you have, any sort of intense amount of water or things like that, it does create those conditions. But I mean, from what you continue to learn, is mold a death sentence? Is it something that if it's present in our home, like it's a wrap for your health unless you spend untold sums of money to totally mitigate it? Which you can say as much as you please. I'll certainly encourage people to look at your podcast with Kathy Cook because of the depth and breadth that she goes into in her work as a true mold investigator. But that of all the things that people test for, I'm thinking on the real estate front of transactional, mold has that stigmatism of like this is code red, and run but don't walk away from this home. If you find it in your own, good luck, healing, with your brain fog and your respiratory issues and all that. And I mean, just with the way weather keeps changing, the more significant events around intense humidity or dampness or just rain, sleet, snow, hail, whatever you want to call it, it's becoming more front of mind. And so I'm curious to hear what you have to say in your experience about. Uh, First, we can start with how you would approach it from the ground up construction perspective, and then if someone is wary of it in their own home, what does that process look like in terms of investigating it and having a relationship with it that doesn't make you feel like this is the end for me and my family?
Yeah. Well, I'm working with a client right now, a new construction client who is recovering from a mold exposure in their home. And so I'm working with them as a building biology consultant and as an interior designer to help build the healthiest, most durable home on the planet for them, right? That are away from threats,
Mm.
whether that is an airport or a cell tower, or making sure that all the steps and procedures are taken so that we build this home in case there's a building failure, such as a water event.
Yeah.
Here's what I mean by that. So we're putting all of these elements into place to protect from a possible exposure event. Because, like you said, weather patterns, we're seeing a lot of building failures,
Yeah.
and it's because these homes have progressively started using synthetic, fake, cheap building materials. And so that's essentially an irritant for mold. So it is a bit of an epidemic, and I think it's going hand in hand though with the construction industry. Because of this mass produced housing that's still going on post World War II, we are seeing so many build failures because there is not a craftsmanship to construction anymore. And so the trades pass their task on to the next trade, and the dots don't get dotted and the T's don't get crossed. And so we're seeing that these homes are being built in the fastest way, the cheapest way, and they lack integrity. And so it's very rare to find a builder or a building industry professional that says, you know what, I'm going to build this home beyond building codes, and we're going to build it to the highest standards because my name is attached to this and I want a happy client and customer. With that being said, I would have answered this question differently before Primal Trust, my work with Primal Trust. So I do not believe mold is code red because I think it depends on the person's nervous system. Their nervous system may depict what is code red for them. If they don't feel safe within, they're not going to feel safe. Because so I grew up on the Chesapeake Bay in Yorktown, Virginia, and my home was flooded twice with hurricanes. So at one point, it was 3 feet in my living room and my whole downstairs, and then another point, it was 6 inches. But either way, we had to totally renovate the home. So I believe I grew up in a moldy environment, not intentionally. We did the best we could, but we lived on the bay, and it was flooded twice. Okay. And I was a swimmer. Hello, the moldiest
Mm.
environment on planet Earth.
Yep.
Okay. But I never thought about mold illness until I started going down this rabbit hole of what is wrong with me. And then I go, oh my gosh, I think I have mold illness. But wasn't I fine before? Maybe, technically, I don't know. It's a heavy conversation. And I'm not discounting things for anyone's experience at all. I do think, though, that and with clients that I'm working with, I highly encourage them to do a limbic system retraining program if
Mm.
if we agree to work together, because I need them to send signals of safety to their body, even if they go traveling and there's mold in their hotel room. I would love for them to signal to their system that even though there's mold here and I have this exposure event, I'm all right. I'm okay. And a lot of that isn't getting communicated.
Yes, I love that. That's the depth of service that you offer to people, is that I am willing to walk this road with you, that, and any path that you diverge onto with them for, yes, I mean, how are your relationships? Do you have the tools you need, or can I share some with you that would help to regulate your system, so that, yes, you can develop a sensitivity and intuition around these things, and then have a compass. And that was something that I wanted to bend your ear about as well, is if you have especially people, again, to bring this back into real estate with so many people standing pat for now, or peers of ours who are thinking, I'll invest in my space for now as it is because maybe I don't want to take the leap. And homes can be hard to find depending on where you are, prices, anything that goes into that. But still, for the long term planning, for people who are looking to go that route of, being the Sherlock Holmes of their own home, and evaluating that from the perspective of, is is my environment impacting my sleep? Is it impacting my health? Is it impacting my digestion? Is it impacting my ability to relate to my partner, with my kids, things like that? I mean, I'm again thinking on every level. I mean, how is this draining or charging my bio battery? Where do you recommend people start that game of Clue? Are they starting in the kitchen, throwing out pots and pans? Do they go around the edge of the property looking for EMF incoming? And are there any products? I did a quick scan of your site, and the site is superb. I mean, it's a stylistic triumph. So I'll certainly be pointing people in that direction. But I didn't get as far as to see if you do offer, just for public consumption, any kits or any products that help people go through that diagnosis. I'll say a quick word just on the physical front, where I appreciated that you did get some blood work done that revealed to you a high level of lead. That's different for me than people saying, well, my T is a little down from when I did my blood work a month ago, and now I need to get on fucking TRT. I'm the hormonal stuff, or certain,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's mostly hormonal levels, or any sort of acidity, alkalinity that you're trying to evaluate in your body. I think that can be a big time moving target for people when it comes to blood work. But to have a snapshot that says, I mean, yeah, you have an absurd, unhealthy amount of heavy metal or anything that looks like mold. I think those things are valuable. And we do the same for our home. So,
Yeah.
where do you nudge people to start to point their compass for investigating areas for addition or subtraction within the home environment?
Excellent question. The sleeping environment. Start with your bedroom, where you sleep. Start there. And we like to say any sort of precaution or any sort of improving is awesome. So even if it's a little bit of improvement, that is incredible. I mean, we all know that we should be wearing natural threads. We all know, like, we, should be eating organic food. For some reason, the built environment has just been long forgotten or left out of the conversation. So, if you can start with your sleeping area, and I would say, I'm just going to run like through a little bullet point
Yeah.
of things people can do before they go to sleep tonight. So, I would always advise unplugging anything that is around your sleeping bubble. I like 8 feet, no electronics in 8 feet. I don't have anything plugged in at all in my bedroom. My phone is downstairs. It's not under my pillow like it was in college, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but we like to make sure that that is a quiet space free of as much electromagnetic radiation as possible. And so if one thing that's really trendy are these circadian friendly alarm clocks. Well,
Yeah.
when you actually take a scientific meter, like, we're very nerdy, we have all these meters that can measure radio frequency and actually measure the data. When you measure one of these circadian alarm clocks, the radio frequency as well as the electric fields that are coming off of these is protruding sometimes up to 4 to 5 feet. So you don't want to be in that bubble of magnetic fields or electric fields coming from that one device.
Agreed. And I'll just jump in to ask for your help the in delineating this for people, because the way that I try to present, and I do, I am deliberate in my usage of language and saying non-native EMFs, non-native electromagnetic frequencies. To say I bring in the language and the analogy again of signals, is that you might it's a non-native signal. It's something that is telling you to be stressed, to be awake, to be alert at
Mhm.
times when you
Yeah.
shouldn't be. I mean, there's a dissonance there anyway, and to have it running all the time for things. I mean, just driving around is one thing, but then when we're talking about our our auric space, or even our biofield of 6 feet plus, depending, anything that infiltrates that, especially if it's pressed right up against your butt cheek, your groin, your face, your heart, your stomach. And we're talking about laying phones on each other, let alone sitting next to a Wi-Fi router, or
Right.
being within a couple feet of a TV that is constantly pinging for signals like that.
Yeah.
I, I have read lists of the symptoms that can produce. What I'm talking about is just the way I describe it and share it with people, and then I'll kick it to you for how you communicate it. That's just too much going on for you. It's hard for you to know yourself. It's hard for you to have and maintain and recalibrate your nervous system regulation if you are being inundated with that, and your body has to channel some sort of response
Yeah.
to that constant, again, just an unfamiliar agent, an alien agent of energy that
Right.
is taxing you constantly. So what would you amend or subtract from that in terms of how do you bring people's awareness to that in your personal spaces, especially for sleep?
Hmm. Yes, non-native. Thank you for adding that,
Sure.
and just to also suggest that there is a little bit of some fuzzy confusion when it comes to talking about EMF. So there are four fields we're looking at. That's
Mm.
electric fields, it's magnetic fields, it's radio frequency fields, and then it's dirty electricity. It's
Yeah.
not just EMF, it's actually electromagnetic radiation is coming from these four different EMFs or fields. And so every device is going to have a different possible threat for it. So, like power lines or your refrigerator motor, that's going to be more of your magnetic fields. And yet, the refrigerator is plugged in, so that's also creating an electric field. And then radio frequency is coming more from cellular technology like Wi-Fi or your cell phone. So that is like very primitive explanation for that. But when you're starting with your bedroom space, you just want to clear out any sort of pollutants that do not belong, that are not natural. Um, Metal headboards would be an easy swap. Like next time, just get a hardwood headboard, because metal attracts static electricity, and that is very disruptive to our nervous system. You want to, if you haven't already, opt for natural linens and bedding. You want to remove anything that it could be emitting VOCs or SVOCs, so plastic derived products, which you would be surprised. I mean, there is a heavy dosage of plastic in our bedrooms. Um, you want to also look at your lighting. Like what sort of lighting are you working with? Are you switching to amber incandescent lights at night, or are you still chilling under the sun, right, of your center light
Yeah.
fixture, your LED blue rich fixture? um yeah, so the biggest thing would be electronics, then the fabrics, and then any sort of chemicals or odors or products, because when we sleep, that is the time we regenerate and we recover, and that's 8 to 9 hours, and so we want to start there.
Are you
Before we
telling me, Lauren, I have to throw away my Febreze plugins? Are you I because
Yeah.
that is where I draw the line. That
Yeah,
is
I mean, people don't think they, like, are impacting them at all, but I would just beg to say, like, try it and see. And
well,
if all of this Go ahead.
just quickly, the language around, and I'm no wild man. I mean, I'm rewilding myself as we speak. Or not literally. I mean, I'm excited to be back outside later this afternoon. The phrase to follow your nose, to we do not, I say we, most of us do
Yeah.
not have that ability anymore. It is dulled by being inside, by being assailed. I mean, that said, you can still be offended by someone's perfume in an elevator or things like that.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that with myself. That's part of why I'm on or I'm committed to a devotion around breath work and developing more of a capacity through my two nostrils because of that as well. As I got concerned over, and it's not like I lost my sense of smell. It's just like this is not as
Mhm.
potent as it should be. It's not as powerful as it should be. And yeah,
Mhm.
to be again just overwhelmed on a regular basis by sense that we subject ourselves to say nothing of commercial or corporate environments, but
Right.
this is where we have all the choice,
Yeah.
right? Is how we manage our own space to soothe us.
Yeah. And this is really like, the the things that I would suggest are superficial in a way, unless you're able to huge impact, but I say superficial like that you can do them. And if you really are nerdy and you want to know, hire a building biologist to come out and quite literally diagnose your space. So building biologists are a little bit like doctors, that you can come into your environment and do a full diagnosis of your home environment. And so that's fun too, where people can kind of
Yeah.
see where they're starting from. And if it feels overwhelming, because it certainly can be overwhelming, it took me about really 5 years to incorporate all of these things so that it's now second nature to me. But I have noticed that we have strayed off the path so much, Tom, that people don't know where to start because it is so
Yeah.
overwhelming. So I would just say go to the Building Biology Institute website, find a building biologist in your area, have one of the specialists come out, and we love educating people. So there is not this hierarchy thing here. It's like, hey, we want to empower you to be able to do this for yourself, because it's a lifelong skill to be able to know what is healing for you and what is harmful for you.
For sure, and the skill to remain curious,
Mhm.
and inquisitive for sure
Mhm.
that I'm
Yeah.
gonna lean into this investigation. Can I press you just for maybe one more as we start to make our descent here? One more, considerable, significant return on investment if someone were to, let's go with an addition here, something that you feel is worthwhile for anyone who is willing to make that upgrade to their space as it is, or even in considering a new home. We'll take it with current home ownership. The
Mhm.
space I have, what is something that you think is money well spent to support our vitality?
Can I give 2 or 3?
Absolutely, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Um, I would suggest adding a water element into your space. So there are studies done where MRI scans on people's brains when they've been exposed to whether it's a hearing water or even a picture of water. What happens to the brain is that it goes into this place of deep rest
Mm.
and calm, even just seeing an image, even like Laird
That's
Hamilton
spectacular.
behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something happens in our brain where we just can go, "Ah, like I'm safe now and I'm okay." And so it's not even adding a water fountain, just adding a picture of an ocean or a river. Even the color blue will do the same thing. And then also adding curves. So curves are very
Hmm.
relaxing to our brain versus harsh angles. We are suspicious of harsh angles. I mean, that's even down to a study done with like square watches and pointy
Yeah.
vases. We feel very nervous around sharp angles. And so curvature used to be part of our built environment, but we have lost the curvature, the curvilinear architecture due to right angles because it's more cost effective, right? So we lost this essence of who we used to be. I mean, energy quite literally gets stuck in corners. And so I love to bring in the global emphasis of feng shui and vastu into this practice because it's so much more than just what we see. There's an energetic component with our built environment. And then just for fun, I would say here's a challenge. Pause and stop and think before you bring anything into your sacred space. So, quite literally, consider your front door your filter. And so, before you walk in, is this something that you want to bring into your environment? Because whatever is inside your built environment, guess what? You become the filter for. So plastic bags and acrylic rugs and off-gassing furniture. it has to be filtered somewhere. Thankfully for our house, we are a lovely filter. And so I would just challenge your audience to stop and pause and realize, do I really want this inside my home and eventually inside of the amazing filter that I have? Okay, last one. Uh, dumb appliances. Dumb appliances. No
Yes,
need
tell
for
them.
no need for smart appliances.
Nope,
We
you're
don't need
smart enough. They're not it's like smart food. That cheesy popcorn is not gonna help you get I'm more
Yeah.
smarter, so
Yeah, we have the dumbest refrigerator and the dumbest dishwasher and the dumbest appliances because they don't have a lot of the RF radio frequency components. And so they're just going to be healthier for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically in that refrigerator at various times or ovens or things like that, and I promise you, you don't need to start the oven from your Apple Watch when you're at work. So you can you can ask someone else to do. You can train your cats and dogs to do that. Uh, you've been so generous with those insights and your time. I think I'll ask just two more hard hitters for you to consider because well, all right. So the penultimate will be a fun one if you would be so kind as to describe your 2 or 3 favorite rooms of your current home or your dream home.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll describe my dream podcast studio. How about that?
Please, please.
Where you and I can have part B, C, D,
Counting on
E
it.
as well. Yeah, acoustics are really important to me. And I'm very sensitive to like rattling and noises. There was a thunderstorm that actually just rolled over my house. And
Yeah, it got so dark, it was
I
so cool
know,
watching
although
you.
I love a thunderstorm, but
Yeah,
more so like acoustics as far as like AC units. I don't like AC units at all. So my future podcast studio and house will be completely ductless, and I'll just be either using mini splits and having a masonry heater. So in that way, when I'm using mass wall construction, the thermal properties of this mass wall can maintain the heat and also the coolness as well. And I don't have to be constantly getting that manufactured, that kind of
yeah,
buzzing that our HVAC systems give us. So, but of course, like tons of windows, everything's is a real building material that comes from nature and it stays a real building material. Like I'm not slapping a synthetic coating over this wood and calling it a real building material. I want it to be able to be using all of its properties. Um, and see nature as much as possible because with building biology, nature is our main goal, getting close to nature as possible. Nature will never fail us. And so making sure when we look out our windows, do we see like what is inspiring to us? And so my husband is almost a permaculture designer. And so him and I are big garden regenerative people. So the garden is really important to us and what's on the exterior. Of course, no pesticides and herbicides. And
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I look forward to the day that emerges into your reality and I can walk, actually run, but don't walk, but walk if I have to on down to see you and share that space with you. And for all of the and you do such a commendable and inspiring job of making this an uplifting conversation around the choice and the opportunity we have to seek these massive upgrades out through subtraction first and then we get the
Yeah.
decisions to build. You know, when you were saying when your first answer was water to good additions people can make, you know, my high level way of thinking about it is, oh, she's going to talk about water filtration, you know, thousands of dollars to spend on water filtration. And for you to just offer up that nice softball of some sort of water element. I mean, bring water in any of its imagery into the
Mhm.
space is a game changer. And I know that if
Yeah.
people follow your work and do embrace a curiosity about that, there is so much potential out there because as we've spoken about before, uh, we're talking about things that transcend the physical material that still have a deep resonant impact on us
Yeah.
and potentially one most likely one of the greatest uh you know obstacles we face in terms of feeling empowered, embodied, enlivened is fear. And in
Mhm.
anticipation of this conversation, I was curious about how you and I can motivate people without employing the tactics of fear, that you need to be afraid of your Wi-Fi router, that you need to be afraid of your fridge and your TV and your room and your home as it's built. Because, do you have $1 million to totally, take down all these walls and
Right.
start this process? I think, first of all, it's reassuring from you to hear that, you do it sequentially. You pick your battles and priorities as we do. And I think you've given some good nudges to, again, surface level, start with sleep. So much reduction and improvements to be had via reduction on the personal care product front, and just our various utilities. But in your words, Lauren, how do you ameliorate fear when we start to talk about toxicity and protecting ourselves? Let us first celebrate the resilience and brilliance of our bodies, that we are able to function and love and work and be despite so many of these, environmental hazards that we face. So we already have a body that is serving us and is constantly filtering. Another, podcast B through Z can be about the central nervous system and how we support that. Fear is one of the most dangerous poisons that we'll ever take. And if we drink a dose of that daily, or a big one, because we think, well, Tom and Lauren are telling me that I should be ripping open my walls. And if I don't, the C word's on the way. That's not at all what we're saying. I don't think you've put that vibe out at all. I, I invite your support and your guidance from myself as well as others about, as I said, being able to counteract that fear from a place that is once again supportive of self-love and self-healing.
We are no good when we are afraid. We're not loving to ourselves, to our neighbor, when we are fearful. And there is enough fear mongering in the world, especially in the environmental space. You know why? Because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of studies that exist on what could harm us, just alone in the environmental arena. But what good is that if we are just making people so afraid of life that they're afraid to live? And I don't want to add to the fear mongering in this space. And very quickly, I realized when I launched my company, House Holistics, I want to be putting out into the world I want to create. And it's not a world of fear or of, did you see this study? Or did you see that study? Or did you know that this causes that? Certainly, I have that data, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm giving it my light all the time, or I'm wanting to give other people's light to it, because I don't think that that's actually productive. I think fear sells, and I'm not interested in selling fear ever. But I understand and I have empathy for why a lot of people use fear to sell in the health space. It works and people buy it. But I'm not interested in that market. I'm interested in creating the world that I want. And it's a world of regeneration. It's a world of holistic healing. It's a world of a divine connection. It's a world of aligned action. It's a world of loving and meaningful relationships, and looking to nature to solve a lot of the problems that we as humanity created. We've overcomplicated it. We've made it messy. So really we're simplifying it. Really we're going back to the roots, and we're just studying what nature has to offer, because all the solutions are already there. So we're really simplifying. We are subtracting so much of what we've added in this lifetime. We're going a little bit more primitive. We're going back to our roots. And that can be scary for some, to really minimize what we have maximalized. But part of this is leveling up as well. And we already know so much. Exposure has happened. So what's the point in continuing to expose something even more? That's not the world I want. I know that's not the world you want either, Tom.
Please accept my profound gratitude and admiration for the way in which you have chosen to present your you-ness in the world, and very much promoting, if you can see this shirt, and for all of our listeners out there, Lauren is a collaborator and a creatrix in her own right, that who chooses and promotes love over fear. She's promoting, her service to her community and this greater space through, I mean, the most uplifting energy that I can see, and it's massively motivating for me in the best way to encourage and support. As I tell people, don't support what you hate, support what you love. If you have some love for Lauren, or anyone who's creating from a truly natural uh, home base, then that's where we get to give our energy, our resources, our curiosity and passions, and it's very much worthwhile. And it's been an absolute treasure to hear about what makes you smile so much and so frequently, and yeah, the all that incentivizes your currency of creation in your world. And just as a last bit of as your host, I would be remiss if I didn't offer you the opportunity to. I can spell house holistics for people. Anything new and exciting that you're creating, exploring, collaborating. I'm so keen to see whoever graces your podcast next through your burgeoning network, and certainly want to give you, kick the mic back to you to promote anything new and exciting that's an endeavor for you.
Well, I just wanted to jokingly say I still do recommend a water filter.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
With all my love, right?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I'm an educator. I love to
Sure are.
educate and empower, and so I have been called into working on writing some pretty profound content with a fellow wizard of mine, and I hope to announce this in the near future coming up, where others can learn what it looks like to create a space that heals them from less of the scientific reality and more of the esoteric ideology philosophy side. So I'm very excited. I'm kind of like, woo, 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 can't wait to put this out into the world. But with that, I'm doing different speaking engagements. One of my local gardens and arboretums is having me come talk about biomimicry and biophilia. And so I just love talking about this stuff. So if you want to learn, please visit my Instagram. I'm sharing different rabbit holes over there. And I'm just really excited about a couple of projects on the horizon. I'm working one-on-one with clients. I really don't consider this work, though. It's such play. It's so different from my interior design career in that it was aesthetic focused and it was what you can see with your eyeballs, versus this is meaningful and it's impactful. And I'm just honored to have been called to this path to create a not just a healthier world, Tom, but a healthy world. So I am honored to be here, and thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed my time with you.
Thank you for accepting that call from the divine and from nature combined. It's such an exciting time for you to see the fertile ground you're really watering for yourself, and you get to flourish. And thank you for all the pearls and seeds that you planted today. I am certain that it will expand the most beautiful world that we know is possible and are co-creating. So thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Tom.